Have you ever opened TikTok to see a video of a red-pilled man on a podcast saying something like, women are monogamous by nature and men are polygamous by nature? It's just evolutionary biology, look it up. With no source, no study, no nuance. Just flat, confident statement delivered like it's gravity. And here's the part that should worry you more than the claim itself. Nobody in the room pushes back, because the room isn't built for pushing back, it's built for content. That clip will get 1 million views, someone stitches it, someone reacts to it, and somewhere in that chain, a 16-year-old boy watching alone in his room decides that this is just how the world works. This isn't new, this isn't even original. What you just watched has a name, and that name is 2,500 years old. Sophistry. Today I want to talk about how an ancient rhetorical trick got rebranded, repackaged, and pumped straight into our For You pages, and why we, collectively, forgot how to argue properly. Okay, let's get into what Sophism actually was. Let's go back, ancient Greece, 5th century BC. There's a group of travelling teachers called Sophists. Protagoras is probably the most famous one. They would charge wealthy, young Athenian men a fee to teach them one specific skill: how to win an argument. Not how to find truth or understand each other, but how to win. That distinction is the entire video, by the way, so write that down. The Sophists taught rhetoric as a tool completely detached from whether what you are arguing is actually correct. You wanted to win a court case? They teach you the techniques. You wanted to convince the assembly to vote your way on a policy? They had a framework for that too. Truth wasn't the point. Persuasion was. And persuasion, to them, was a craft you can sell, like a trade. Socrates hated this, like really hated it. And through Plato's dialogues, we get this reoccurring takedown of sophists as basically intellectual mercenaries. People who'd argue any side of any position for the right price, with zero interest in which side was actually true. Plato draws a hard line between rhetoric, the art of persuasion, and dialectic, the art of reasoning towards truth through structured questioning, what we now call the Socratic method. For Plato, dialectic was noble because both people in the conversation were trying to get closer to something real. Rhetoric, in a sophist's hands, was just a weapon. Aristotle, to be fair, tried to rehabilitate rhetoric a bit. He thought persuasion could be used ethically, in service of truth, not just against it. But the word sophistry struck as an insult for a reason. It describes an argument that is technically clever, structurally sounding, but built on the foundation of nothing, with no logical backing. A sophist doesn't need to be right. A sophist needs you to feel like they're right, and feel it fast, before you even have time to check. And hold on to that definition, because we're going to watch it walk straight into the 21st century using podcast equipment. Now, let's discuss how red pill culture is sophism with a ring light. Okay, for anyone who needs a quick definition, red pill comes from the Matrix. Taking the red pill means seeing the real world as it supposedly is, versus the comfortable lie of the blue pill. The manosphere borrowed that metaphor wholesale and built an entire ecosystem around it. Dating coaches, podcast bros, self-styled alpha males, telling men that they've been lied to by feminism, by society, by women themselves, and that they are the ones offering the unfiltered truth. Here's my issue. It's not that every claim that red pill spaces make is automatically wrong. It's more about how the claims are delivered. And once you know what sophistry looks like, you start seeing the exact same playbook everywhere in this space. Tactic 1. Borrowed authority. Someone says, this is just evolutionary psychology, or this is just biology, and presents it as a settled science, when actually evolutionary scientists will tell you that huge chunks of this stuff is contested, oversimplified, and just made up entirely. The word biology is used the way a sophist uses a fee as a credential that buys instant trust. no homework required. Tactic 2. False dichotomies. Alpha or beta, Chad or virgin, high value or low value. There is no third option in this framework, no spectrum, no context, because nuance is the enemy of a clean, shareable, repeatable framework. A sophist doesn't want you thinking in shades of grey, because grey doesn't sell coaching calls. Tactic 3. Unfalsifiable framing. Now this is a big one. If you disagree, you're not someone with a different view. You're brainwashed, you're asleep, you're a feminist. The disagreement itself becomes proof that you're wrong. That is not an argument. That is not a debate. It's a trap dressed up as one. A real argument can be challenged and can lose. A sophist's argument is built so that losing is impossible. Every counter-argument gets absorbed back into the framework as more evidence for it. Tactic 4, and this is the one that gets me. Confusing delivery with correctness. Confidence is being used as a stand-in for evidence. Calm, deep voice, direct eye contact to the camera. Let me be brutally honest with you. None of that is logic. That's performance, but our brains are wired to read confidence as competence, and red pill content is built on exploiting that wiring. And I want to tread lightly here, because not everyone consuming this content is a villain of the story. A lot of these men are lonely, genuinely struggling with rejection, with isolation, with not knowing how to talk to people. And that pain is real, and that's exactly why it's exploitable. Sophists have always targeted people who are anxious and want certainty fast. The Athenian sophists sold confidence to young men worried about their place in society. The red pill economy is selling the exact same thing, just with a podcast feed instead of a fee-paying apprenticeship. The tragedy is that the actual solutions to loneliness and dating anxiety is therapy, social skills, vulnerability, time, which are all slow and unglamorous. Sophistry, however, is fast and glamorous. So I guess which one wins the algorithm? Now let's talk about where this all collides. Platforms built to look like they're hosting a real debate, while actually they're just rewarding the exact opposite. Jubilee's surrounded format puts one person in the middle of a circle of 20-odd people who disagree with them, who rotate in one at a time to challenge them. And if the crowd decides someone is losing, they get a red flag and swapped out for someone new. On paper, that's billed as a tool for human connection. Jubilee's own founder said that the goal is to help people see each other as humans. In practice, multiple commentators, including many writers, have called the format extremely competitive, theatrical, and unbalanced, comparing it to a Mr. Beast-style game show, and have pointed out that it functions less as dialectic and more like a gladiator pit with better lighting. And there's data behind that, like one writer who tracked 29 episodes of Surrounded and found that not a single person changed their mind on camera, not once, across every topic the show covered. Think about that. A show literally engineered to put opposing views in a room together, and the format itself has no mechanism for someone who actually updates their position. The structure is built for volleys, not for a quiet moment after someone honestly admits that they might be wrong. And when that moment does flicker, the next debater is already walking in to fill the silence before it can take hold. That's not a debate format. That's a content format that's borrowed the aesthetics of a debate. And the casting choices matter too. Multiple outlets have documented Jubilee repeatedly platforming extremist voices, with critics arguing the format can normalize or amplify those views, even when the stated intent is dialogue. In one widely discussed episode, the fact check was only used once for the single historical claim, despite the conversation ranging across far more contested ground. The fact-checking exists as a credibility prop, not a real filter. This is the same trick Sophists ran, is just industrialized. You don't need to be right. You need the format to look rigorous enough that the audience assumes rigor is happening. A circle of debaters looks fair. Red flags look like accountability. A single fact-check stamp looks like journalism. It's the theatre of scrutiny without the substance of it. And the Red Pill podcast run their own version of this theatre. Long-form conversations, calm tone, we're just having a discussion energy. But no pushback, no opposing voice in the room at all, no fact-checking whatsoever. At least Jubilee puts a disagreeing body in that chair. A lot of these podcasts don't even bother with that. It's just a monologue, wearing dialogue's clothing. What both formats share is this. They've optimized for the feeling of a debate, the tension, the gotcha moment, the clippable soundbite, while quietly abandoning debate's actual job, which is getting two people closer to what's true, even if that means one of them has to lose an argument in public. And we, the audience, have been trained to reward exactly the wrong things. We don't share the moment someone calmly says, "Actually, that's a fair point. I hadn't thought about it that way." We just share the moment someone gets destroyed. We share the soundbite, not the synthesis. So, why did this happen? Why are we, culturally, worse at disagreeing than we used to be? Honestly, I think one issue is the incentive problem. Social media doesn't pay you for nuance, it pays you for a clean, decisive, shareable moment. Well, it's complicated, here's the context, answer doesn't clip. A flat, confident, slightly cruel one-liner does. So the platforms select for sophists, structurally, whether or not anyone intends for that to actually happen. Furthermore, I think this is an intelligence issue. Anti-intellectualism is on the rise, and one of the reasons of this is because people don't read anymore. And no, I'm not saying you need to read dozens of classical literature or scientific articles to be considered smart, but reading and the enjoyment of reading is no longer prevalent. Even reading fiction is so incredibly rewarding, especially in learning emotional intelligence. Escapism in the form of putting yourself in the shoes of your favourite characters. This in and of itself helps so much. Yet, like I said, anti-intellectualism is on the rise. Worryingly so, to the point average people think it's okay to dispute factual evidence provided by experts. Lately, these red-pilled men believe reading the 48 Laws of Power is enough to have an intellectual debate. Whew, it's gotten ridiculous, guys. And debate itself has become a genre now. Debate bros clipping themselves destroying people in comment sections, treating disagreement as a sport with a scoreboard instead of a method for thinking better. When winning becomes the entire point, you stop caring about whether what you're defending is even true. That is not debate culture. That's sophistry with production value. And here's how I think you can spot a sophist in real life. Whether it's a red-pilled podcaster or a debate show contestant, or honestly just someone you know, they cannot be wrong. Watch what happens when you actually corner them with a good counter-argument. Do they engage with it? Do they reframe it, deflect, or just talk louder? They lean on vibes as evidence. Everyone knows. It's just common sense. Facts don't care about feelings. Said with zero facts attached. They need you to feel something before you've even had time to think. Urgency, certainty, bundled together, are almost always doing the work that the evidence should be doing. A real debate, the Socratic kind, requires the humiliating possibility that you might end up proven wrong in public, and you have to say so. That's terrifying for some people, and it's also the entire point. A culture that's lost its tolerance for the kind of public uncertainty is a culture that's lost the art of debate, full stop, and is exactly the gap that sophists, ancient or algorithmic, have always rushed in to fill. So next time you watch a clip, a red-pilled podcast, a Jubilee debate, or a social media post, ask the only question that actually matters. Is this person trying to be right, or are they just trying to win? Because that's not the same question. They never have been. The Greeks knew it, we just forgot. If this kind of breakdown is your thing, you know what to do. Please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments, where else have you noticed sophistry hiding in plain sight? I'll see you in the next one. Bye.